Captain Marcus Whitfield had served the royal family for 23 years, but nothing in his extensive training had prepared him for what he would encounter on that foggy Tuesday morning in November. The palace grounds were unusually quiet, with most of the staff attending to their early morning duties in the main quarters. Marcus was conducting his routine security sweep of the East Wing storage areas when his flashlight beam caught something unusual tucked behind a collection of old furniture covered in dust sheets. The trunk appeared ancient, crafted from dark mahogany with intricate brass fittings that had tarnished over decades of neglect. What immediately struck Marcus was its placement, hidden deliberately behind a wardrobe that hadn't been moved in years, judging by the dust patterns on the stone floor. The trunk itself was surprisingly clean compared to its surroundings, as if someone had been maintaining it despite its concealed location. Marcus approached cautiously, his years of security training making him naturally suspicious of anything out of place within the palace walls. The brass nameplate on the trunk's front was partially obscured by an old cloth, but he could make out elegant script lettering that appeared to be from the early 1900s. His initial instinct was to report the discovery immediately to his superiors, but something about the trunk's careful concealment made him pause. The lock mechanism was unlike anything Marcus had seen in his years at the palace. Instead of a traditional key lock, it featured an intricate combination system with multiple rotating dials adorned with royal crests and symbols. Each dial contained 12 positions, marked with different heraldic emblems that Marcus recognized from his extensive knowledge of royal history. The complexity suggested this wasn't merely a storage container, but something designed to protect valuable or sensitive contents. As Marcus examined the trunk more closely, he noticed fresh scratches around the lock mechanism, evidence that someone had recently attempted to open it. The scratches were shallow and careful, suggesting the work of someone with knowledge of antique mechanisms rather than a crude break-in attempt. This discovery sent a chill down Marcus's spine, as it implied that someone within the palace had been secretly trying to access whatever lay inside. The morning light filtering through the narrow storage room windows cast eerie shadows across the trunk's surface, highlighting intricate carvings that Marcus hadn't initially noticed. Along the sides were carved scenes depicting various royal ceremonies and celebrations, each rendered with remarkable detail and artistry. The craftsmanship suggested this trunk had been created specifically for the royal family, likely as a repository for items of particular significance or sensitivity. Marcus's radio crackled to life, startling him from his examination. The voice of his colleague, Sergeant Thompson, filled the quiet storage room, asking for his location update. Marcus hesitated before responding, an unusual reluctance that surprised him. Something about this discovery felt monumentally important, as if opening that trunk might change everything he thought he knew about the palace and its history. The weight distribution of the trunk suggested it contained substantial contents. When Marcus carefully tested its weight by lifting one corner, he estimated the trunk held at least 50 pounds of material. The items inside shifted slightly with his movement, producing muffled sounds that could have been papers, books, or possibly wrapped objects. The mystery deepened his curiosity, while simultaneously increasing his apprehension. After completing his security sweep, Marcus found himself returning to the storage room repeatedly throughout the morning. Each visit revealed new details about the trunk's construction and decoration. He discovered a small royal seal embedded in the wood near the base, a marking he recognized as belonging to King Edward VII's reign, dating the trunk to the early 20th century. This historical connection elevated the potential significance of the discovery exponentially. The palace's head of security, Director Hamilton, arrived for his usual mid-morning briefing with Captain Whitfield. Marcus had worked with Hamilton for over a decade and respected his judgment implicitly. However, as he prepared to report the trunk discovery, Marcus found himself grappling with an inexplicable reluctance. The trunk seemed to radiate an aura of secrets that made him question whether some discoveries were meant to remain hidden. Director Hamilton noticed Marcus's distracted demeanor immediately. Years of security work had taught both men to read subtle changes in behavior and body language. When Hamilton inquired about any unusual findings during the morning sweep, Marcus experienced a moment of internal conflict that would later prove to be one of the most significant decisions of his career. The conversation took place in Hamilton's office, a spartanly decorated room filled with security monitors and filing cabinets. Marcus had reported countless minor incidents and observations in this same office over the years. But today felt different. The weight of the trunk discovery seemed to press down on him as he sat across from Hamilton's desk, watching his superior review the morning's security reports. Hamilton's questioning became more specific when he noticed Marcus's hesitation. Years of working together had created an almost telepathic understanding between the two men, making it nearly impossible for either to hide significant concerns from the other. Marcus realized that his unusual behavior was becoming more suspicious than the trunk itself, forcing him to make a decision about disclosure. The clock on Hamilton's wall ticked loudly in the silence as Marcus weighed his options. Protocol demanded immediate reporting of any unusual discoveries, especially items of potential historical significance found within the palace grounds. However, something about the trunk's careful concealment suggested that its previous caretaker had compelling reasons for keeping it hidden from official channels. Marcus's military background had instilled in him a deep respect for chain of command and proper procedures. Yet his instincts as a security professional were suggesting that this particular discovery might require careful handling outside normal protocols. The conflict between duty and intuition created an internal tension that Hamilton couldn't help but notice. The decision to reveal the trunk's existence came suddenly, triggered by Hamilton's direct question about whether anything unusual had been discovered during the morning sweep. Marcus found himself describing the trunk's location, appearance, and apparent age, while Hamilton listened with increasing interest and concern. The gravity of the situation became apparent as Marcus detailed the evidence of recent tampering with the lock mechanism. Hamilton's response was immediate and decisive. He ordered the storage area to be secured and placed off limits to all personnel pending a thorough investigation. The trunk would be examined by specialists, but first they needed to determine who else might know about its existence and whether its concealment posed any security risks to the royal family. The remainder of that first day was spent documenting the trunk's discovery and establishing a security perimeter around the storage area. Marcus found himself appointed as the primary investigator, a role that both excited and worried him. As evening approached and the palace settled into its nighttime routine, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that uncovering the trunk's secrets would irrevocably change not just his own life, but potentially the lives of everyone within the palace walls. The trunk sat in its hiding place, its secrets intact for one more night, while Marcus prepared for what he instinctively knew would be the most challenging investigation of his career. The brass fittings seemed to gleam with anticipation in the dim storage room lighting, as if the trunk itself was eager to reveal the secrets it had protected for so many decades. Tomorrow would bring answers, but tonight brought only questions, and the heavy weight of responsibility that comes with discoveries that could reshape history. Dawn broke gray and overcast as Director Hamilton assembled a carefully selected team to examine the mysterious trunk. The group included Marcus, two senior palace historians, Dr. Elizabeth Thornton and Professor James Aldrich, along with Master Locksmith Samuel Garrett, whose family had served the royal household for 4 generations. The secrecy surrounding the investigation was unprecedented, with all team members required to sign additional confidentiality agreements before entering the storage room. Thornton arrived carrying an array of specialized equipment for examining historical artifacts. Her reputation for discretion and expertise in royal historical matters made her the obvious choice for this sensitive investigation. As she examined the trunk's exterior, her expression grew increasingly intrigued. The craftsmanship and materials were consistent with items commissioned specifically for the royal household during King Edward VII's reign, confirming Marcus's initial assessment of its historical period. Professor Aldrich focused his attention on the carved scenes decorating the trunk's sides. Using magnifying equipment and careful lighting, he identified several specific royal ceremonies depicted in the intricate woodwork. Most significant was a carved representation of King Edward VII's coronation, complete with recognizable figures from the royal court. This discovery suggested the trunk had been created to commemorate or preserve materials related to that pivotal moment in royal history. Master Locksmith Garrett's examination of the locking mechanism revealed its sophisticated design. The combination system required knowledge of specific royal heraldic symbols and their historical significance. Each of the 12 positions on the 4 rotating dials corresponded to different aspects of royal ceremony and tradition. Garrett estimated that without prior knowledge of the correct combination, opening the trunk through trial and error would require months or even years of systematic attempts. The evidence of recent tampering became more apparent under Garrett's expert scrutiny. The scratches around the lock were consistent with someone using modern tools to carefully probe the mechanism without damaging it. Garrett's assessment suggested the person attempting to open the trunk possessed both patience and respect for the artifact, indicating familiarity with antique mechanisms and possibly professional training in restoration or historical preservation. Director Hamilton coordinated the investigation with military precision, establishing detailed protocols for documenting every aspect of the examination. Photographs were taken from every angle, measurements recorded, and detailed notes maintained by each team member. The investigation's thoroughness reflected not only professional standards, but also an awareness that whatever lay inside the trunk might have profound implications for royal history and current palace operations. As the team worked, Marcus noticed subtle tensions developing between the academic experts and the security personnel. Dr. Thornton and Professor Aldrich approached the trunk as a historical artifact requiring careful scholarly analysis, while Hamilton and his security team viewed it primarily as a potential security threat that needed rapid assessment. These different perspectives would create ongoing challenges throughout the investigation process. The decision to attempt opening the trunk required careful consideration of multiple factors. The potential historical value of the contents had to be weighed against security concerns and the possibility that opening the trunk might damage whatever lay inside. Additionally, the team had to consider whether the trunk's original concealment indicated that its contents were intended to remain secret permanently. Dr. Thornton's research into palace records revealed no official documentation of the trunk's existence. Her search through storage inventories, acquisition records, and historical catalogs yielded no references to a trunk matching the discovered artifact's description or approximate creation date. This absence of official records suggested either deliberate concealment from the beginning or later removal from official documentation for unknown reasons. Professor Aldrich's investigation took a different approach, focusing on the historical context of King Edward VII's reign and the types of materials that might have been considered too sensitive for official archives. His research revealed that the early 20th century was a period of significant political and social changes that created numerous situations requiring discretion and careful handling of sensitive information. The team's lunch break provided an opportunity for informal discussion about the morning's discoveries. Over sandwiches in Hamilton's office, the group debated various theories about the trunk's contents and the reasons for its concealment. Dr. Thornton suggested the possibility of personal correspondence or private royal documents that were preserved outside official channels for privacy reasons. Professor Aldrich proposed that the trunk might contain materials related to political controversies or diplomatic situations that required careful handling even decades after their original significance had passed. His knowledge of early 20th century royal history included awareness of several situations where official documentation was deliberately kept separate from regular archives to prevent future complications. Master locksmith Garrett contributed practical insights about the trunk's security features. The sophisticated locking mechanism suggested that whoever commissioned its creation expected the contents to remain secure for an extended period. The combination system's complexity indicated that access was intended only for individuals with specific knowledge of royal traditions and heraldic symbols. Marcus found himself increasingly fascinated by the human elements of the mystery. Someone had originally hidden the trunk with great care, and someone else had recently discovered it and attempted to open it. The investigation was uncovering not just a historical artifact, but evidence of ongoing human drama playing out within the palace walls across different time periods. The afternoon session focused on preparing for the trunk's opening. Master locksmith Garrett had identified several possible combinations based on significant dates and symbols from King Edward VII's reign. The team established procedures for documenting the opening process and preserving any contents that might be fragile or deteriorating due to age. Director Hamilton's security concerns centered on the possibility that the trunk's contents might reveal information affecting current palace operations or royal family privacy. His team prepared protocols for handling potentially sensitive materials, including procedures for immediate consultation with higher authorities if the contents proved to have contemporary significance. As the day progressed, news of the investigation began circulating among palace staff despite attempts at secrecy. The unusual activity in the storage area and the presence of outside experts had not gone unnoticed. Marcus observed increased curiosity and subtle questioning from colleagues, indicating that maintaining confidentiality would become increasingly challenging as the investigation continued. Dr. Thornton's expertise in document preservation led to preparations for handling potentially fragile papers or photographs that might be inside the trunk. She arranged for proper environmental controls and conservation materials to be available immediately upon opening. Her experience with historical documents had taught her that the first few minutes after opening long-sealed containers could be critical for preservation. The team's dynamics evolved throughout the day as each member's expertise contributed to understanding different aspects of the discovery. The combination of security training, historical knowledge, technical skills, and preservation experience created a comprehensive approach to the investigation that none of the individuals could have achieved independently. As evening approached, Master Locksmith Garrett announced his readiness to attempt opening the trunk. His analysis had narrowed the possible combinations to 3 most likely sequences, based on significant royal dates and heraldic patterns. The team prepared for what they all sensed would be a momentous revelation, though none could predict exactly what secrets the trunk had protected for so many decades. The storage room was prepared with additional lighting and documentation equipment for the opening attempt. Each team member understood their role in the process, from photography and note-taking to immediate conservation of any discovered materials. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation as they prepared to uncover secrets that had remained hidden within the palace walls for over a century. Marcus stood ready to witness the culmination of a discovery that had begun with his routine security sweep just 24 hours earlier. The investigation had already revealed the trunk's historical significance and evidence of modern tampering, but the true mystery lay in what had been deemed important enough to hide so carefully and for so long. Tomorrow would bring answers to questions that had been building since the moment his flashlight first illuminated the mahogany surface in its dusty hiding place. The moment of opening arrived, with ceremonial gravity, as Master Locksmith Garrett positioned himself before the trunk's intricate locking mechanism. His weathered hands moved with practiced precision across the rotating dials, each click resonating in the silent storage room like a countdown to revelation. The first combination attempt was based on King Edward VII's coronation date, arranged according to heraldic significance. The mechanism responded partially, with 3 of the 4 dials clicking into place before stopping at the 4th position. Thornton documented each attempt with scientific precision, noting the dial positions and mechanical responses. Her experience with historical artifacts had taught her that understanding the creator's mindset was often key to unlocking their secrets. The trunk's designer had clearly expected the opener to possess not just dates and facts, but deep understanding of royal symbolism and ceremonial importance. The second combination attempt incorporated the date of King Edward VII's accession to the throne, combined with symbols representing the 4 nations of the United Kingdom. Garrett's fingers worked carefully across the dials, feeling for the subtle mechanical feedback that would indicate correct positioning. This attempt brought them closer, with all 4 dials engaging partially before the mechanism stopped just short of complete unlocking. Professor Aldrich suggested incorporating Queen Alexandra's coronation into the combination sequence, reasoning that the trunk's creation during King Edward VII's reign would likely acknowledge both monarchs. The carved decorations included subtle references to the queen consort, suggesting her importance to whatever events or materials the trunk was designed to preserve. Marcus watched the proceedings with growing tension, aware that each attempt brought them closer to discoveries that might challenge everything they thought they knew about palace history. The careful documentation of each step ensured that the opening process itself would become part of the historical record, regardless of what secrets emerged from within the trunk. The third and successful combination proved to be a complex sequence incorporating both King Edward VII's birth date and the anniversary of his mother Queen Victoria's death, arranged according to the heraldic symbols of his various titles and dominions. The final dial clicked into place with a satisfying mechanical precision that had been waiting over a century for the correct sequence. The trunk's lid rose slowly, its hinges protesting with age, but functioning smoothly despite decades of disuse. The interior revealed multiple compartments and layers of organization that spoke to careful planning and systematic preservation of materials. Wrapped bundles, Sealed envelopes and carefully arranged documents filled the space from bottom to top, each item positioned with obvious care and intention. Dr. Thornton's first priority was assessing the preservation state of the contents. The trunk's construction had protected its contents remarkably well, with minimal signs of deterioration despite the passage of time. The controlled environment within the sealed trunk had prevented the moisture and temperature fluctuations that typically damage historical materials over extended periods. The uppermost layer contained a leather-bound journal, its cover embossed with royal insignia and dated 1910. Professor Aldrich recognized the handwriting immediately upon opening to the first page, the distinctive script of King Edward VII himself, written during the final months of his reign. The journal's existence outside official archives suggested it contained private thoughts and observations, deemed too personal or sensitive for official documentation. Beneath the journal lay a collection of photographs, each carefully wrapped in silk cloth and arranged in chronological order. The images depicted private royal family moments, informal gatherings, and candid shots that contrasted sharply with the formal photography typically preserved in official archives. Several photographs showed individuals whose identities were not immediately apparent, suggesting social connections or relationships not documented in official royal biographies. Marcus noticed Director Hamilton's increasing concern as each new discovery revealed materials that had been deliberately excluded from official records. The security implications were becoming apparent. Someone within the royal household had systematically preserved materials outside normal archival channels, creating a parallel historical record that might contradict or supplement official accounts. A sealed envelope marked with King Edward VII's personal seal contained what appeared to be correspondence, but the team agreed to postpone opening these letters until proper conservation conditions could be established. The wax seal's preservation was remarkable, suggesting the envelope had been sealed shortly before the trunk's concealment and never subsequently disturbed. The middle section of the trunk contained maps and architectural plans, some showing areas of the palace that Marcus didn't recognize from his extensive knowledge of the building's current layout. Dr. Thornton's examination revealed that several plans depicted rooms and passages that appeared to have been sealed or modified in subsequent renovations, suggesting the trunk preserved records of the palace's original configuration. Professor Aldrich discovered a collection of newspaper clippings from various European publications, all carefully preserved and annotated in the margins with handwritten notes. The annotations were in multiple languages and appeared to represent different perspectives on the same events, suggesting systematic intelligence gathering or political analysis beyond what would normally be preserved in official archives. The most intriguing discovery was a series of documents bearing the seals of various European royal houses, suggesting diplomatic correspondence or agreements that were handled outside normal governmental channels. The implications for understanding early 20th century European politics were staggering, particularly given the complex relationships between royal families during this period of significant political change. Dr. Thornton's careful inventory revealed that the trunk contained materials spanning approximately 2 years, from 1908 to 1910, covering the period immediately preceding King Edward VII's death. The systematic nature of the collection suggested it represented a deliberate effort to preserve materials that someone believed would be historically significant but potentially controversial if preserved through official channels. The lower compartments contained items that appeared more personal in nature, small gifts, ceremonial objects, and what appeared to be mementos from various royal occasions. These items provided insight into the human side of royal life during a pivotal period in British and European history, revealing personal relationships and private moments that official records typically excluded. Marcus realized that the trunk's contents represented far more than historical curiosities. The materials suggested the existence of a shadow archive, carefully maintained by someone with intimate access to royal life and significant understanding of what future historians might find valuable. The person who created this collection possessed both historical perspective and practical knowledge of preservation techniques. As the afternoon progressed, the team's initial excitement gave way to growing awareness of the responsibilities their discovery had created. The trunk's contents challenged established historical narratives and revealed previously unknown aspects of royal life during a crucial period. Each document and photograph raised new questions about what other secrets might remain hidden within the palace's walls. Director Hamilton's security concerns intensified as the scope of the discovery became apparent. The materials suggested that someone within the royal household had maintained unauthorized records for reasons that were not immediately clear. The possibility that similar caches might exist elsewhere in the palace required consideration of systematic searches and security reviews. The day's final discovery was perhaps the most significant. A handwritten letter addressed to future guardians of truth signed with King Edward VII's personal signature and sealed with his private seal. The letter's existence suggested that the trunk's concealment was not random but part of a deliberate plan to preserve specific materials for future discovery and evaluation. Professor Aldrich's examination of the letter's exterior revealed watermarks and paper composition consistent with royal stationery from 1910, confirming its authenticity. The decision of whether to open this final sealed communication required careful consideration of its potential contents and implications for understanding the motivations behind the trunk's creation and concealment. As evening approached, the team prepared to secure the trunk and its contents for overnight storage while they considered their next steps. The discovery had already exceeded their expectations in both scope and significance, revealing a treasure trove of materials that would require weeks or months of careful study and analysis to fully understand. Marcus found himself appointed as the primary custodian of the trunk's contents, a responsibility that both honored and intimidated him. The materials they had uncovered represented not just historical artifacts, but potential evidence of secrets that had been carefully guarded for over a century. Tomorrow would bring decisions about how to proceed with materials that might reshape understanding of royal history and contemporary palace operations. The decision to open King Edward VII's final sealed letter came after extensive consultation with palace authorities and historical preservation experts. Director Hamilton had spent the night in communication with senior officials, while Dr. Thornton prepared specialized equipment for handling what might be the most significant document in the entire collection. The letter's opening took place in a controlled environment, with full documentation and the presence of additional witnesses from the Royal Archives Department. Breaking the century-old wax seal required delicate precision to preserve both the seal itself and whatever lay beneath. Dr. Thornton used heated surgical instruments to carefully soften the wax while maintaining its structural integrity for future study. The seal bore not only King Edward VII's personal insignia, but also additional markings that Professor Aldrich identified as belonging to a secret society of European royal historians known as the Order of Historical Guardians. The letter's contents exceeded everyone's expectations in both scope and implications. Written in King Edward VII's distinctive handwriting, it revealed the existence of a network of hidden archives maintained by various European royal houses during the early 20th century. The monarch had apparently coordinated with his European relatives to preserve materials that official historians might find controversial or potentially damaging to royal reputations across the continent. King Edward VII's letter explained that the trunk represented just one component of a larger preservation effort designed to provide future generations with complete historical records, including materials that contemporary politics required to be kept secret. The network included similar hidden archives in palaces across Europe, each containing materials that official governmental and royal archivists had deemed too sensitive for immediate preservation. The letter specifically mentioned collaboration with Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany and Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, despite the growing political tensions that would eventually lead to World War I. This cooperation between royal cousins in preserving historical materials continued even as their respective nations moved toward conflict, suggesting personal relationships that transcended political boundaries. Marcus was astonished to learn that the trunk's concealment had been planned from the beginning, with specific instructions for its eventual discovery and evaluation. King Edward VII had apparently anticipated that future generations would need access to complete historical records to understand the complexities of early 20th century European politics and royal relationships. The letter provided a map showing the locations of additional hidden materials within the palace, including references to sealed rooms and concealed compartments that had been forgotten over the decades. This revelation meant that their current discovery represented just the beginning of what might be a comprehensive hidden archive spanning multiple locations throughout the royal residence. Dr. Thornton's excitement was tempered by professional concern about the implications of these revelations. The existence of unauthorized archives raised questions about what other materials might have been deliberately excluded from official records throughout royal history. The preservation network described in the letter suggested a level of coordination and secrecy that challenged established understanding of how royal historical records were maintained. Professor Aldrich began cross-referencing the letter's contents with known historical events, discovering correlations that suggested the hidden materials might provide alternative perspectives on significant political and diplomatic developments. The potential for these materials to revise historical understanding of early 20th century European politics was enormous, particularly regarding the relationships between royal families during the period leading to World War I. The morning's work revealed additional layers of complexity as team members examined other documents in the trunk more carefully. Several items were written in code, using systems that Professor Aldrich recognized as being based on heraldic symbols and royal ceremonial traditions. Decoding these documents would require specialized knowledge of both cryptography and royal historical practices. Director Hamilton's security assessment expanded to encompass the possibility that other palace staff members might have knowledge of additional hidden materials. The letter's references to ongoing preservation efforts suggested that the network might have continued beyond King Edward VII's death, potentially involving palace employees across multiple generations. The photographs in the trunk took on new significance in light of the letter's revelations. Several images showed gatherings of individuals who appeared to be involved in the historical preservation network, including palace staff members, royal relatives, and what appeared to be academic historians from various European institutions. These informal photographs provided visual documentation of relationships and collaborations that official records had never acknowledged. Marcus discovered that one of the maps in the trunk depicted a route through the palace that he had never seen in official architectural plans. Following this route during his afternoon security rounds, he located a concealed door behind a tapestry in the east wing that opened onto a narrow staircase leading to previously unknown chambers beneath the palace's main structure. The hidden chambers contained additional materials, including more recent additions that suggested the preservation network had continued operating well beyond King Edward VII's time. Documents from the 1920s and 1930s indicated that subsequent monarchs and palace officials had maintained the hidden archive system, adding materials they deemed important for future historical understanding. Thornton's analysis of the preservation conditions in the hidden chambers revealed sophisticated environmental controls that had protected the materials from deterioration over decades. The chambers included climate control systems, fireproofing, and security measures that suggested significant investment in maintaining the hidden archive's integrity across multiple generations. The scope of the discovery was becoming overwhelming as each new revelation led to additional questions and potential discoveries. Professor Aldrich estimated that fully cataloging and analyzing all the materials might require years of dedicated research, potentially revolutionizing understanding of 20th century royal history and European political relationships. Marcus found himself at the center of what was rapidly becoming the most significant historical discovery in palace history. His routine security sweep had uncovered not just a single trunk of hidden materials, but evidence of a comprehensive preservation network that challenged fundamental assumptions about how royal historical records were maintained and controlled. The afternoon brought additional discoveries as the team explored the hidden chambers Marcus had located. Among the more recent additions were materials from World War II, including correspondence between royal family members and political leaders that provided unprecedented insight into private discussions during critical historical moments. Director Hamilton's briefings with senior palace officials resulted in decisions to expand the investigation while maintaining strict confidentiality. The potential implications for royal family privacy and historical reputation required careful handling, particularly given the material's potential to reveal previously unknown aspects of royal involvement in major historical events. The team discovered that the preservation network included detailed inventories and cross-references that would allow them to locate additional hidden materials with greater efficiency. The systematic organization suggested that whoever maintained the network possessed both historical expertise and practical knowledge of palace operations across multiple generations. As evening approached, Marcus realized that his discovery had initiated a historical investigation that would continue long after his own involvement ended. The hidden archive system represented one of the most significant finds in royal historical research, with implications extending far beyond the palace walls to understanding European history throughout the 20th century. The day's final discovery was a sealed container holding materials marked as being from the current century, suggesting that the preservation network had continued operating into modern times. This revelation meant that the hidden archive system might still be active, with someone within the current palace staff continuing the century-long tradition of preserving materials deemed too sensitive for official documentation. Dr. Thornton prepared detailed preservation protocols for the expanding collection of materials, while Professor Aldrich began the lengthy process of cataloging and analyzing documents that might reshape historical understanding of royal family relationships and political involvement across multiple decades. The investigation had evolved from a simple discovery of a hidden trunk to uncovering evidence of one of the most sophisticated and long-lasting secret preservation networks in royal history. Marcus understood that his role as discoverer had placed him at the center of revelations that would continue unfolding for months or years to come, with implications that extended far beyond anything he had imagined during his routine security sweep just days earlier. The revelation that the hidden preservation network remained active into the modern era transformed the entire investigation from historical research into active counterintelligence work. Director Hamilton coordinated with the highest levels of palace security and government intelligence services, as the scope of the discovery continued expanding beyond anything anyone had imagined possible. The investigation now required resources and expertise far beyond what the original team could provide. Marcus found his role evolving from discoverer to key witness as intelligence professionals took over primary responsibility for the expanding investigation. His detailed knowledge of palace operations and security procedures made him invaluable in identifying potential current network members and understanding how the preservation system had continued operating without detection for so many decades. The modern materials contained in the most recent sealed container included digital storage devices alongside traditional documents, indicating that the network had adapted to technological changes while maintaining its core mission of preserving sensitive historical materials. Computer specialists brought in to examine these devices discovered encrypted files containing communications and documents spanning the past several decades. Dr. Thornton's analysis revealed that the preservation network had maintained incredibly detailed records of its own operations, including biographical information about network members across multiple generations. These records showed how knowledge and responsibility for maintaining the hidden archives had been passed down through carefully selected palace staff members, creating an unbroken chain of custodianship spanning over a century. The network's membership had apparently included individuals at every level of palace operations, from senior officials to maintenance staff, each contributing different types of access and expertise to the preservation effort. This widespread involvement explained how the system had remained undetected, while continuing to gather and preserve materials that official channels excluded from permanent record. Professor Aldrich's research revealed that similar preservation networks had operated in royal establishments throughout Europe, with evidence of coordination and material sharing between different national systems. The discovery suggested that European royal families had maintained parallel shadow archives that might contain materials unavailable through any official governmental or historical channels. The investigation's expansion required establishing new security protocols and classification systems as materials were discovered that related to contemporary political figures and ongoing diplomatic relationships. Some documents contained information that remained sensitive decades after their creation, requiring consultation with intelligence services and foreign relations experts. Marcus learned that his discovery had triggered reviews of security procedures at royal residences throughout the Commonwealth, as authorities attempted to determine whether similar preservation networks might exist in other locations. The implications for understanding royal historical involvement in political and diplomatic affairs were staggering, potentially affecting relationships between nations and institutions. The hidden chambers beneath the palace yielded additional surprises, as systematic exploration revealed the existence of a complete parallel archive system that had operated independently of official royal record-keeping for over a century. The chambers contained environmental controls, security systems, and organizational structures that rivaled those of major national archives. The discovery that current palace staff members were involved in maintaining the preservation network led to careful interviews and background investigations that revealed a culture of historical preservation that had been passed down through generations of dedicated employees. These individuals had viewed themselves as guardians of complete historical truth rather than unauthorized record keepers. Dr. Thornton's preservation work became increasingly complex as the volume of discovered materials continued growing. The hidden archive system contained thousands of documents, photographs, recordings, and artifacts that would require years of professional conservation work to properly preserve and catalog for future research and analysis. The network's organizational structure proved to be remarkably sophisticated, with different members responsible for acquiring, preserving, and organizing materials, according to strict protocols that ensured systematic coverage of significant events and relationships. The system had apparently evolved and adapted over decades while maintaining consistent standards and objectives. Marcus discovered that his own security clearance and background had been quietly evaluated years earlier by network members who had considered him a potential candidate for recruitment. This revelation highlighted the network's careful approach to expanding membership and its detailed knowledge of palace personnel and their suitability for maintaining historical secrets. The investigation revealed that the network had preserved materials related to virtually every significant political and diplomatic event involving the royal family over the past century, creating an alternative historical record that provided perspectives and information unavailable through official sources. The implications for historical research and understanding were unprecedented. Professor Aldrich's analysis of the network's materials revealed previously unknown details about royal family involvement in major historical events, including private communications and personal perspectives that challenged some established historical narratives. The materials provided human context and personal motivations that official records typically excluded. The discovery that the network had been preparing for eventual disclosure became apparent as researchers found detailed instructions for transferring materials to official archives and academic institutions. The network members had apparently anticipated that their preservation work would eventually become public and had prepared procedures for responsible disclosure. Director Hamilton's security assessment revealed that the network had actually enhanced palace security in some ways by maintaining awareness of potential threats and sensitive information that might not have been addressed through official channels. The network's activities had created an additional layer of intelligence gathering and threat assessment that had operated parallel to official security systems. The palace's senior officials faced unprecedented decisions about how to handle revelations that challenged traditional approaches to royal historical record-keeping and transparency. The network's existence raised questions about official archival policies and the balance between privacy and historical preservation that would require careful consideration at the highest levels. As the investigation continued expanding, Marcus realized that his routine security discovery had uncovered one of the most significant historical preservation efforts in royal history. The network's century-long dedication to maintaining complete historical records had created a treasure trove of materials that would provide researchers with unprecedented insight into royal family life and political involvement. The modern continuation of the network suggested that the preservation effort remained active and ongoing, with current staff members continuing the tradition of gathering and protecting materials they believed future generations would need to understand contemporary royal historical involvement. This revelation meant that additional discoveries might continue emerging as investigation procedures evolved. Dr. Thornton and Professor Aldrich began planning long-term research programs that would allow systematic study and analysis of the network's materials while maintaining appropriate security and privacy protections. The scale of the discovery required academic resources and expertise far beyond what any single institution could provide. The investigation's final phases revealed that the Preservation Network had maintained detailed contingency plans for various scenarios, including procedures for protecting materials during emergencies and protocols for transferring responsibility to new generations of custodians. The network's foresight and planning had ensured its survival through multiple political and social changes. Marcus understood that his discovery would continue generating revelations and requiring investigation long after his own direct involvement ended. The Hidden Preservation Network represented a unique chapter in royal history that would influence understanding of monarchy, politics, and historical record-keeping for generations to come. The palace would never be quite the same after learning that its walls had protected not just royal residents, but also one of history's most comprehensive and long-lasting secret preservation efforts. The trunk that had started everything sat empty now, its secrets transferred to proper archival facilities, but its discovery had opened doorways to understanding royal history that might never have been opened otherwise. The investigation continued, revealing new aspects of the Preservation Network's activities and impacts, ensuring that Marcus's routine security sweep would be remembered as the moment when hidden history finally came to light.